Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How LexisNexis Solve Their Clients' Reporting Challenges. My name is Susan Kudalakis and I'm Marketing Manager here at Progress. So while we jump in, I'm going to introduce you to today's speakers. We're joined by Mike Fergal from Progress and Nigel Williams of LexisNexis. Mike Fergal started his career at Progress in 1989 in development. He's held many different roles during his time, including working on the OpenEdge database product and managing different development teams working on the OpenEdge database. 2012, he joined the consulting team at Progress as Director of Database Services, where he and his team are responsible for managing over 2,000 distinct databases and over 140 terabytes of data and 175,000 connected users. As a former developer of the OpenEdge database, Mike brings a unique perspective as both a customer of the OpenEdge technology and also a developer of the same technology. Mike has presented highly technical topics around the world at nearly all of the Progress conferences and PUGs. Nigel leads LexisNexis Enterprise Solutions approach to workflow software with responsibility for setting the direction for the Visual Files solution. Visual Files is the UK's leading workflow platform, and Nigel is part of the senior leadership team for that business. He describes his role as a combination of technologist, evangelist, facilitator, listener, decision maker, and cat herder. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mike to start the presentation. Mike?
Thank you, Susan. Lucky for me, I'm not doing a lot of the heavy lifting in this webinar. Normally I do. So we're here to talk about LexisNexis, and Nigel's going to take it from here to talk about how we leverage Pro2 to help bring value to the end user community. So handing it over to Nigel right here.
Thanks very much, Mike. Hello, everyone. I'm Nigel Williams, as Susan said. I head the product team here at LexisNexis Enterprise Solutions. Now, I'm not going to delve into the technical detail for Pro2 and how we've embraced it. I'm going to talk more around the business process. So what's Lexis Visual Files? Well, it's the UK's leading workflow and case management solution. And as part of Visual Files, we fit within the LexisNexis umbrella. LexisNexis is a global player of information, delivering primarily to tax and legal markets. And LexisNexis itself is part of the RELX Group. We are owned by the RELX Group. So we had a challenge. We go back 3 or 4 years. Within the Visual Files business, we had a challenge. And that challenge really was our client's challenge, or even more precisely, our client's challenge. And that really was the provision of timely information. Visual Files is an incredible tool, and it's used for high volume processing of legal transactions. And because it's focused on that, it's not great for reporting. And increasingly, our clients' demands for reporting were growing. They wanted real-time reporting. As I said, their clients' requirements were growing. The demands and expectations were increasing. They wanted flexibility. They wanted access to information as soon as it was committed into the database. And they were talking a lot about changing technology. And we were struggling at the time. We were able to provide a solution, but it wasn't entirely fit for purpose. So what were we providing at the time? It was an ETL solution. That's data extract, transform, and load. And some of the challenges that we faced were around it being batch process only. It was incredibly slow. We've got clients who are running millions of transactions, and trying to extract that data out took overnight, and in some cases, longer than overnight and longer than the window that was available. We had no differential capability. By that, I mean, as a batch process, we overwrote the previous night's batch every time. The other challenge was it had increasingly become a third-party solution, and we lacked the knowledge of how to accommodate and adjust and support this product within our existing engineering capacity. So we had a challenge. We needed an alternative. And we looked and we spent a great deal of time considering our options. First one was obvious. We could say, well, let's take what we've got and let's evolve it and see if we can get better with that existing ETL code. Maybe we even sort of hold our hands up and say, do you know what, clients, we give you a visual files solution that helps you run your legal processes. Reporting, do your own thing. That's not necessarily the best approach to take, however. We could develop something new. And to that end, it was, do we build it or do we sort of buy it in from outside? And we could explore existing third-party opportunities, and that's really what we were excited about. And so the first step that we took was working with Progress, who are our key supplier. They are our key technology partner. We work with many others, but Progress are really the number one for us. And let's see what we could do. What could Progress bring to the table that would help us? And we get to this point that I sort of describe as finding Pro2. So we knew about Pro2. We'd met up with the BravePoint team and we were aware of the solution as it stood. But we were slightly nervous at that stage. Bear in mind, this is back in 2016. And really, that was because it was another third-party solution at that point. It wasn't part of the Progress world. And it was really a set of ingredients that you could mold into an incredible solution. But what we were looking for was a single shrink-wrapped solution. We wanted a one solution to fit all our clients, not having to take all the different ingredients and meld them each time for each different client. So the Progress acquisition of Pro2 was fantastically timed for us. It also worked well for Progress because we were both talking about how can we exploit and leverage this excellent technology. And there was a real willingness to take things forward. So we put together some joint proof of concept work. Our engineers went over to the Progress team and spent some time with the Pro2 experts to explore and understand what it was we were trying to do on behalf of our clients and how Progress and the Pro2 experts could turn that into reality. So at this point, it's probably best to hand over to Mike, who'll talk some more about Pro2 and give you some of the reasons that were important to us to embed it as a solution within visual files. Mike, over to you.
Thank you, Nigel. So one thing I want to bring some clarity to, and we'll talk about this in a moment, is the Pro2 solution was a long existing solution that was owned and developed by a company called BravePoint. In October of 2014, Progress bought BravePoint. So BravePoint became part of Progress, and that's what Nigel was getting at with the acquisition. When Progress bought BravePoint, they got a consulting team, but also as part of that purchase, they ended up finding this gem called Pro2, the Pro2 SQL product that allowed people to do exactly what Nigel was looking for. So what does it do? It enables people to do what Nigel's customers were looking for. They wanted to be able to make proactive decision making based on data that was changing at that moment. It allows third-party applications to be able to then go access that data conveniently using off-the-shelf shrink wrap tools, Power BI being probably the most common use case today. And it did not increase the database footprint. It wasn't replicating or adding a lot of overhead to the existing application. And finally, what's become apparent in Europe especially is it's compliant with data transfer regulations. GDPR requires that if you need to remove data that's sensitive for a customer, login information, user information, that needs to be removed in all databases, in all places that it's stored. So if you're exporting data out to a ASCII file to then import it into SQL Server, you need to make sure now you're managing those ASCII files well. And Pro2 does not do that. It does real-time replication from a source to a target database, which you can see right here on this slide. So in the LexisNexis case, they had the OpenEdge database on the left-hand side where people were doing active transactions, working through the day, and at the same time, Pro2's in the middle, and it is replicating that data directly to SQL Server automatically. So data that's being modified on OpenEdge, within a second or two, end up showing up on SQL Server. And this enabled the end users to run reports, to be able to get that data in a timely fashion so they can see what's changing and make the business decisions on the currently modified data without having to wait overnight for a batch process. So as I mentioned before, Pro2 came with the Breakpoint acquisition. It was developed in 2006, solving the exact needs of what LexisNexis was describing. This is not a new problem. This problem has been around since the late 90s, early 2000s, where people were trying to get data out of OpenEdge into a more commodity database. The database landscape has commoditized, and it really has settled down to some open source technologies, Oracle and SQL Server. So we knew that customers were trying to get OpenEdge data out to these platforms, either open source or Oracle or SQL Server. And as of late, that has consolidated down even more. The majority of our customer base moves data from OpenEdge to SQL Server for reporting because most everybody has some sort of SQL Server deployment in their ecosystem. So back in 2006, we were doing it by hand like everybody else, and we thought that there has to be a better way. So we developed this product. We built it not by doing batch exports, but doing this real time by tracking changes and then pushing the changes over to SQL. We have a large install base. About 650 to 700 installations exist right now. And with that, there's multiple configurations that you can have. So in this picture here, we're looking at the LAN configuration where Pro2 and the OpenEdge database sit in the same data center, as well as the target database being SQL Server, Oracle, or another OpenEdge database. So we're just doing straight client server to the database to go read the records, buffer copy it over to the target. However, as people started deploying this product, the requirements of the product changed. So recent versions from 4.6 and beyond, which is not too long ago, maybe 3 years ago, we introduced a WAN implementation. As people are moving data to the cloud, we now have data in distinct data centers. You have the cloud-based OpenEdge environment, and you have the SQL target that lives on premise. In this environment, we have the Pro2 software that lives on premise, talking across a WAN to an app server to go fetch the data and again, provide that real-time replication. Other use cases would be the opposite. Your OpenEdge is sitting on premise, nothing's changed there, but you don't want to do SQL Server on premise anymore, or you have no SQL Server expertise, but you want to be able to do reporting out of SQL Server. We can replicate up to the cloud, to an Azure instance, to an AWS instance, and replicate again real time to that SQL instance that is hosted in the cloud. Again, same technology. The Pro2 software lives in the cloud, talks across the WAN to the app server that is on premise, that is now replicating from on premise to cloud. How does it work? There are really two components to Pro2. There's a change data capture component that's replication trigger based, works with any database from version 8 up until version 12. However, in 11.7, again, as part of the acquisition for Breakpoint, Progress learned about Pro2 and tried to make it easier. So in 11.7, Progress and OpenEdge now has a native change data capture component that is available in Pro2 leverages. So in 11.7 and above, we're not using replication triggers. We're using that native CDC that's built into the OpenEdge database. Either way, the replication triggers or native CDC, all this is doing is it keeps track of all the changes being made to the database. And what it does is it adds a row to a table called the replication queue. And that row is not a mimic of the data, it's just a pointer back to the source data. So it's a very lightweight change that's being done. So now we have rows in the repl queue describing changes. Was it a create? Was it an update? Was it a delete? And what row was it that had that operation done on it? So we have replication processes. This is the second component of Pro2 that manage the repl queue. It's just reading the repl queue, saying I found a row that changed, and this is the change that happened. That process goes and fetches the row either via an app server call or a client server, and then pushes that row over to SQL, Oracle, or another Progress database. And this is constant. So these batch processes that just constantly look at the changes being made to the database and push those changes over to the target database, and that provides for real-time replication. However, with the maturity of this product, there are more things that you can do with this. For example, why would you want to replicate data to a SQL or Oracle database? Well, it's for reporting. So one of the benefits here is you can add additional indexes to columns that are not indexed in the OpenEdge environment. The typical OpenEdge application has indexes used for lookup and validation. Well, that's not really how reporting wants to use indexes. You may be reporting on columns using a where clause on a column that does not have an index on it. In the target, you can put as many indexes on the database as you want. The only restriction is they must be non-unique indexes. There can only be one unique index, and that's the index that Pro2 owns. But that's not a big deal because reporting doesn't need to do validation, and that's what unique indexes are for, is for validation. You can transform the schema. By default, hyphens are converted to underscores. This allows you to write your SQL without having to do square brackets around everything. You don't have to do that. You can keep hyphens in the tables and fields and then use angle bracket or square brackets around them. But we have the option to define when we create the schema what we want those to look like. So you can see that we're transforming the schema, we're transforming data as it moves over just by out-of-the-box configuration. Likewise, there are fields in OpenEdge, data types in OpenEdge that don't exist in SQL. An example of this would be an extent field. There's no such thing as an array in SQL. So we, again, automatically convert any extent field to be that field ##1, field ##2, and then the replicating process automatically takes element 1 of that array and puts it to field ##1. Element 2 of that array goes to field ##2. So these are the out-of-the-box transformations you get, but you can transform as much as you want. There's a facility that is created that generates these replication procedures. Once they're generated, you can go edit them and change anything you want. We've had customers take that generated code and go do lookups in other tables to pull data into the row that they're replicating to flatten out the schema. That's an example because that makes reporting easier in a lot of cases. Likewise, we include some additional fields. We get the source row ID, so that's the join between the OpenEdge row and the SQL row. But we also maintain a created date and a modified date. And this comes back to what Nigel was saying. His batch process was dumping the entire database or the entire table set overnight, and then it was overwriting what it had already uploaded the previous night, which is not efficient. So we have date created, date modified, even on the target side, because a lot of BI tooling would do net change for what's changed since the last time you pulled in the data set. So you'd pull in the full data set the first time, do your BI operations, and when you're ready to update the data set, you don't have to pull in the whole data set. You just pull in what changed based on the created date and modified date. Very useful for BI tooling. So that is the Pro2 product. I got a little more technical than Nigel did, but I think that's worthwhile understanding the technology, the configurations you can use, the deployments, and some of the interesting things you can do on the target that will make your reporting life better. With that, I'm going to hand this back over to Nigel.
Thanks very much, Mike. Yeah, it's really interesting what you say about the transform element because that's been really key for us. We absolutely exploit what the Pro2 product sort of puts in our hands. We take the OpenEdge data out in that near real-time way, but we're able to plug it in. We've linked it into our solution, and we've been able to transform that data based on our ABL code and deliver it into the SQL warehouse such that it is absolutely optimized for reporting. So we've got a transactional OpenEdge world that Visual Files is, that really works to process legal workflows in a really efficient way. And at the same time, we're able to extract that data out near real time in the background and put it into this normalized view that's absolutely optimized for reporting. It's really been a game changer for us. So just sort of thinking about how we got to that point, It was really helpful to have exploratory discussions with Progress, with the Pro2 experts, and that allowed us to sort of evolve into a proof of concept. We then had a whole series of sort of agile iterations, a number of clients that we were working with, and ultimately we were able to sort of come up with a version 1, version 2, and iterated through some really useful work with clients and Progress in order to deliver the solution that we have today. And we were able to sort of transition not only the technology, but also think about the commercials. This was back in 2016. And how we evolved both the solution and the commercials was a real credit to that sort of partnership approach between LexisNexis and Progress. So we successfully delivered version 1 early 2016. We're a long way down the road now. We do regular enhancements. Our clients are sort of embracing it and constantly wanting more. The interesting thing is we originally developed it as a management information solution, but our clients, many of them have taken it and they're doing some really weird and wonderful things with it, driving lots of B2B processes and things that we otherwise would not have thought of. So it's interesting how one use case often manages to fit a number of different scenarios. So if I were being asked, what are the key takeaways in terms of our Pro2 journey? Number one is understand the requirements. Now, to that end, I've just said we hadn't identified everything that we thought our clients would do, but we absolutely understood the key requirement and we were focused in on that. We explored the options, we tried a number of different options, and in the end we made the decision, and it's the right decision, to work with Progress and to make this part of our own solution. This is not a bolt-on, this is part of Visual Files. Obviously engage with the available experts, and don't ever ignore the fact that the Progress community has a rich and wide and varied expertise. So whilst we started off perhaps talking to BravePoint, and eventually we're working with Progress, don't ignore the fact that there are many partners, Progress partners that offer great deal of insight and expertise. So where are we today? The sales team's embraced it. Hey, no surprise. They've got a fantastic product that they're able to sell. There was skepticism at the start. Well, why are we doing this? Why can't we just plug into something else? Actually, now we're in a situation where our sales team understand not only does it solve that main use case, the delivery of that MI warehouse, but it can do a lot more. So we're able to talk to clients about the rich options that are available to them. And our clients have embraced that. They want more. So we're in a situation now where we are looking at some of the things again that Mike was talking about, the whole move towards cloud, and where do you deploy the solution, and do you have SQL Server and Power BI in the cloud? The good thing is we've got an absolutely rock solid foundation upon which we're able to build, and we've got great relationship with Progress to exploit that expertise. So here we are, 4, 5, 6 years into, well, it's probably 5 years, isn't it? 4 or 5 years into the journey, but lots of exciting times ahead. So I hope that's given you an insight into why we from LexisNexis and Visual Files took the Pro2 route. It's certainly helped us deliver and answer our clients' expectations. Susan, I guess back to you and to Mike.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. So I want to share that Nigel's not the only partner that has leveraged Pro2, but I do want to say that LexisNexis is certainly a unique implementation of what they did with Pro2. We have other partners that have embedded the Pro2 technology, DMSI here in the US, Skyward here in the US, and Broadridge here in the US. What they did is they included the change data capture portion and the replication schema in their application. So when they deploy their application, it is Pro2 ready, which means that at the customer, that their end customer then can purchase Pro2, and then we figure out how to get Pro2 enabled. Typically takes consulting. More than typically, all the time takes consulting, because there's a lot of configuration that you can do, a lot of choices. So consultants would come in, they would help educate the end user customer with the options, and then they would go implement it for them. That's not the case at LexisNexis. LexisNexis took the Pro2 code and made it part of their application. So turning on Pro2 for LexisNexis is turnkey. It is really integrated into the application, has the look and feel of the LexisNexis application, and all you need to do is enable this in a screen, and all the schema and everything is built out for you. So it's a seamless implementation to have a SQL database being replicated from the OpenEdge database without having any effort besides enabling this in the software. So they really took this to the next level, that we hope, if there's partners on the phone here, that they could think about how they could take the Pro2 technology, either do what Skyward, DMSI, and Broadridge are doing, making it easier to deploy, or taking it to the next level like LexisNexis and bringing it into the application and really embracing the ecosystem of data as it moves from OpenEdge out to other third-party data stores that are required for modern day reporting. So at this point, I'm going to hand it back to Susan for any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Mike. While I'm waiting for questions to come in, I do want to mention one quick thing. If you guys are listening, don't forget to join the entire OpenEdge and Progress team at Progress Next. That's happening in Boston, June 14th through the 17th. And for more information, you can go to progress.com/next. And there is a agenda there, and you can take a look at all the great things. I'm really excited about that. But I have a couple questions that came in, and I think Nigel, this one might be for you. How did LexisNexis decide to integrate Pro2 into their application instead of just embedding the schema like other partners?
I think that's probably what Mike was just talking about there. We wanted the seamless solution. So when we first started talking to BravePoint, there were a lot of ingredients and there was consulting. And actually what we wanted was something that became part of our core solution and was integrated into our solutions business logic, could be easily deployed, implemented, almost by that license key. What we didn't want to do was have bespoke implementations for each client. So that was why we've sort of taken, I think, as Mike describes, that integration to that next level, and it's part of our solution.
Great. There's another question, I think, Nigel, for you. It's about on upgrading Pro2. So has LexisNexis upgraded Pro2 in their application since their initial deployment? How did that go? What are the plans, et cetera?
In terms of upgrading the Pro2 element, no, we're actually still running version 4. We always look at any new sort of feature function, 5, 5, 5, 6, and on the merits of each release, we decide whether we want to upgrade. Version 4 has been solid for us. It's worked. It does everything we need to do. We have looked at version 6, and we quite like the whole dashboard capability that's now available. So we are considering that, although dashboards, it's a nice to have rather than must have. But where we are, the original work we've done is still delivering what is needed.
Great. Glad to hear that. And I think we have time for one more. And I think, Mike, this is a question for you. With the transition to the cloud, do you see Pro2 as an enabler for people who want to move to the cloud?
Definitely, yes. So given the fact that you can replicate data to the cloud, one of the things that's a nice byproduct of Pro2, we've talked about Pro2SQL, we've talked about Pro2Oracle. You can also do Pro2Pro. So we've leveraged this technology for many customers that want to do things like a dump and load or reorganization of the database, or they're doing an upgrade of their schema, and they can't take the downtime to be able to deal with adding indexes or any of those things. But finally, platform migrations. It's very common nowadays for people that are on HPUX. HPUX has end-of-lifed their platform. So we have a lot of customers on HPUX that are trying to find where the next home is going to be. And when they are replatforming, they are deciding that the cloud might be the place to go. We recently just did a very large company that's a mortgage company, and we moved them from AIX to Linux in AWS, and we used the Pro2 technology to do that. So we did real-time replication from on-premise to the cloud, and their cutover to move from on-premise to the cloud was less than 20 minutes for them. That's what we're talking about downtime. 20-minute downtime. Their database size was about half a terabyte, about 500 gigabytes, and they had no downtime really for the transition from on-prem to the cloud. So we're finding people we're finding our consultants are finding opportunities for customers that have low downtime requirements, and we can use this technology to help them deal with data migration, dump and load, and stuff like that.
Great. I don't see any other questions coming in, but for those still on, Nigel was so kind to record a video for us a while back. So it's a brand new video that we posted to the website not too long ago. So we're going to play that as we fade out. So hopefully you guys will all watch Nigel and get to see him in person. And I do want to thank Mike and Nigel and the whole team here for joining us today. And hopefully we'll see you guys all soon.
Happy to do it. Thank you.
LexisNexis is probably one of the world's leading providers of information to professional services, worldwide, global provider. I work in the UK side, so we look after UK needs primarily for legal and tax professionals, providing information, providing technology, providing analytics. LexisNexis, we deliver our information through a variety of sources. There's a huge amount of data we have in our own data centers. Predominantly, we deliver through our own technology, be that web or specific point solutions. We're now on the third sort of iteration of the evolution journey, and that's around cloud, web enablement, delivery of mobile. And we've just begun the delivery and development and delivery of new web UI, new tools that work within Microsoft 365, Office 365. So really exciting part of that evolution that we're on now. 2 or 3 years ago, our clients helped identify a challenge within reporting, the ability to provide current information on the visual files data set. At the time, we had a data extract transform load, ETL solution that worked overnight, extracted data out of visual files, transformed it, and loaded it into a separate SQL warehouse. That was working well. Many clients used it. The challenges were it was overnight. It wasn't real time. Did we look at alternatives? We spent weeks looking at alternatives. We looked at alternative non-OpenEdge, non-progress solutions. We looked at letting clients just go free format and do whatever they wanted. So yeah, we explored the whole set of opportunities. And at the time, we were in discussion with the Pro2 team, and they were offering us sort of that flexibility to take some of the components and mold something that was almost personalized for the visual files world. It was an ideal sort of setup. Why did we decide on Pro2? Because it was the right solution at the right time that answered the challenges that we had. And rather than just being Pro2 as it was, we had the opportunity to shape it and mold it into what we needed as part of our core. Previously, you're always going to be 12 hours out of sync, and increasingly our clients were demanding more timely information that ultimately couldn't be delivered. Now it can with that near real-time feed. We're working with some real large organizations who have incredibly high transactional processing volumes, and they are working in sub 10-second synchronization. It's fantastic. We're seduced by the rocket ship of OpenEdge 12 and really excited about how can we adopt that and get all those benefits and deliver a faster working solution for our clients.